Finance Minister Enoch Godongwana's midterm policy statement said to provide an early glimpse at the priorities of the Government of National Unity. In fact, in their statement of intent, the GNU has pledged to prioritise growing the economy. Bringing more sentiment now, let's bring in Thulani Tshefuta. He's the overall convener of civil society at NEDLAC. That's where, of course, government meets with certain organisations, including Labour. Thulani joining us via our video link this morning. Great to have you on the SABC News channel, so thanks very much indeed for making time. And I wonder whether it's easy for NEDLAC to kind of distill what you're hoping to hear come 2 o'clock this afternoon in a context where, let's face it, there are just so many different, sometimes competing interests.
We're grateful for the opportunity indeed. On our side, as the civil society at NEDLAC, it is the easiest of tasks to express our expectations because we have been consistent on the issues that we have been raising, starting by acknowledging the fact that the medium-term budget policy statement that the Minister of Finance will be presenting today is not the actual budget per se, but an update on our national budget. But this is the statement, policy statement, that will be beginning to expose the posture that government is placing or taking in as far as resourcing the priorities that were expressed by the President as the priorities of the Government of National Unity on growing the economy and creating employment, on cushioning the poor, on the cost of living, and then building a capable, ethical, and developmental state. And we start by arguing that we are all for growth. And our condition is that that growth must place people at the center of that growth. It must not be a growth that people cannot relate to. It must not be a growth that the general population are only spectators of. They must be part of that. Secondly, we expect that the budget policy statement will not just do the growth forecasting, but it will begin to articulate measures that will bring about the very same growth. And on our side, we believe that there are certain factors that, if not addressed, they will remain the binding constraints, but if addressed, they become the critical enablers. They become the critical enablers, or they become the binding constraints for investments, growth, and ultimately employment. And those factors basically have to do with energy, water, infrastructure, broadband data, and skills development. And when we talk about those factors, we don't only see the addressing of those factors, making them critical enablers of investments, growth, and employment, but they equally have a crucial role in the daily service delivery, in the service of the lives of the people at a community level. And so we believe that if those are addressed, they will have a knock-on effect, not only on the economy, but also on the lives of the people on a daily basis.
Right.
Secondly, we have noted that despite some relief on the oil prices, strengthening of the rand, the reduction in petrol prices, the cost of living still remains very, very high. And our submission is that we need to consolidate and scale up social protection measures,
right,
including the social relief of distress grant that can be graduated into a universal basic income grant.
Sure. You know, Thulani, it seems to me that the destination across the political spectrum is the same. You know, everybody speaks of economic growth, ensuring that there are more jobs and protecting the poor. But the path there seems to be where the divide comes in. And I'm only pointing to that because there's been a lot of talk around how this is the first midterm budget under the Government of National Unity. Prior to this, there was, expectation that a lot of what is announced would probably be in line with the ANC's own posturing towards things like labor, employment, etc. My question to you is, how much of a divergence are you expecting from what we've heard in the past?
We do experience, even at a departmental level, from department to department now, we do experience the expression of the same old, no sense of agency and all of those. And of course, where policies that are in place are policies that we agree with. We may expect the re-expression or re-emphasis of the same, but what we expect to hear and see is the articulation of actions that will bring about the realization of the very same policy intents. And from our side, as it is known that every time after the presentation of a budget, the minister does have an engagement with NEDLAC, and we will be meeting with the Minister of Finance on Friday at NEDLAC. Ours will be to bring about pragmatic suggestions of not what should be said, but what should be done to bring about that growth, to create employment and cushion the poor against the high cost of living.
I suppose there's an expectation of low-hanging fruits. I mean, this is the question we've been asking people who are watching this budget very closely. From your perspective, what are some of those?
The first of those is the escalation of the social relief of distress grant into a universal basic income grant, because it is something that we have tested, and even those who are against it are blind to the fact that there are economic multipliers that come with those types of social protection measures. Secondly, we believe that the scaling up of public employment programs has empirical evidence of engaging the poorest of the poor in some economic and income generating activities whose result is reducing poverty and inequality. We also believe that the area of supporting rural economic activities and livelihoods in the form of water, roads, and bridges, and even practical support for agricultural activity is an area that we can wake up and do yesterday. And lastly, education and health are non-negotiable for us.
All right, Thulani Tshefuta, thanks very much indeed for helping us canvass through some of the sentiment of those you represent at NEDLAC.